16, 17, 21, 69.
You've already gone higher than I can count. All right,
Delaware.
I only have
I
so
saw
many
some
finger ends.
triangle.
Every male should be able to count to 69.
Yeah, we skipped.
There went our family-friendly rating. Thanks, Doc. You're going to give Casey a run for her money. All right, so good thing we're not monetized on YouTube yet, because that's not happening now. We'd have to give the money back. So, hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans, it's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just three nerdy veterans, and all three of us are here this time. Nick, proof of life, he's even sober-ish.
Wait, does the audience actually know which one Nick is, though, anymore?
Yeah, it's right there in the bottom left corner of my video. It has my name on
we
it.
market to readers.
Yeah. So just three nerdy veterans geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place, and shenanigans, they all happen here. So without further ado, we put the fun in dysfunctional, and today we bring you into this shit show, Peter Nealon. So can you please introduce yourself to our guests? Or to our guests, to our listeners, readers, viewers, peoples. Damn you, Doc.
Everybody. Introduce yourself to everybody.
All right. So I'm Pete Nealon. Been writing for about 10 years now. Before that, I was a recon Marine for 8 years. And in the between, I've done quite a bit of overseas contracting in the past.
Okay. Well,
we are limited. Thrillers mostly.
That's professional speak for mercenary, but with a focus.
I thought it was professional. I'm not going to go into that.
PMCs, they're awesome. What company did you work for?
SOC.
Okay.
So it would be cooler if I was contracting for the federal government, which is not quite the same as being a merc.
It would have sounded cooler if you'd be like, "That's classified. I could tell you, but I had to kill you." Like, just lean into it. Go full spoon. Totally. I'd do it if I could. Totally no one would believe me, though.
Nobody believes you anyways, JR.
This is also true. But so the next part of the introduction, dear listener, is we tell them how we found the guest. So I actually found Peter before this interview in the first one it's now closed, but it was a military veterans who were authors group, but apparently too many pictures of guns and they closed it down. I don't know. Dang you, Zuckerberg. So that's how I first met him. What about you guys? Did you know of him before he came to the show?
I knew of him because you talked about him and because we've interviewed him previously, but really not so much from anything else.
So Nick, you were Super Secret Squirrel. He was Super Secret Squirrel. Did you like know each other because you have some sort of secret handshake or telepathy?
No, because I am a dinosaur Super Secret Squirrel.
Meaning you're old and you move slow?
Yeah, that's exactly
with trick knees.
Yeah, but I lift heavy things out of.
We all have trick knees.
Yeah,
this is true.
Jumping out of perfectly good airplanes, it does a number on you.
Or off of perfectly good strikers. That sounds almost as cool, right?
No.
You could at least try to fake it for me, Nick.
Even I'm old, and even I know it's not cool.
You got to call a spade, man. You were a dirty, nasty leg, and that's
leg lives matter. Where's that stupid banner for the bottom? Leg lives matter.
No, I had no knowledge of Pete till you hit me up. It's like, hey man, we're gonna have this Marine Raider on, and I was like, all right, cool. You know, it's already cool with me.
Technicality, I was recon. I was not Mars.
Not a Raider. Okay.
No.
Well, you 8 crowns, and that's cool enough.
Lo siento, please forgive me.
Well, that's something I have to correct people on fairly often. I had to do it in the kind of the build up to this book. No, these guys are recon. They're not MARSOC. Not the same thing.
Yeah.
MARSOC came out of recon, but different mission set, different chain of command. MARSOC works for SOCOM. Recon works for the Marine Corps.
See, I always thought recon was
you got
sort
your
of
two cools, right? You got your scuba bubble and your jump wings. All right.
I
know there was some weird division not too long ago, if memory serves, where they were like, hey, we're going to be the Raiders, and then this is going to be that. Yeah. When before it all used to be Force.
MARSOC got stood up in 2007, and they disbanded the Force companies to build it. And then Headquarters Marine Corps realized after the fact, oh, wait, we just gave up that capability to SOCOM, and they're working for SOCOM and not for the Marine Corps, and we're not just getting SOCOM money. What the hell? and then we stood Force back up in 2008.
Which is so weird because the Corps fought that SOCOM money for so long, like 70s, 80s, 90s.
They went for it and then still didn't quite get what they were doing.
That's the problem when you get absorbed into the fold, is that you don't belong to your branch anymore. You're some sort of hybrid Rainbow Six bullshit.
Yeah. So
I feel like My Little Ponies are involved here.
No, we just like rainbows with bullseyes on them.
I did convince a Marine to write My Little Space Ponies.
Was it in crayon?
No, he in theory can read with regular pens, but this is not this Marine. We have interviewed him though.
I did know a guy on contract who was trying to get somebody to take the call sign Brony. Didn't get any takers.
I would have took it in a heartbeat.
I think there's somebody who uses that one in the Four Horsemen fandom.
I would have taken that call sign in a heartbeat. Brony? Oh yeah, this dude just got off by Brony 4.
All right,
I brought dishonor to his whole family.
Shame to you and shame to your whole family. All right, Doc.
And your coconuts.
Okay, I'm going to save us from Nick.
Please do.
It needs to be done. So, here's your religion question. Starship Troopers, Aliens, or Halo Forward Unto Dawn?
Aliens.
Why Aliens?
Really? You're going to ask that question? I already know the answer.
That Marines, for one, and two, it's a hell of a lot better action flick than either of the other two.
Fair enough.
And it is the last Alien movie, so.
Aliens is the cornerstone of mill sci-fi, as far as I know.
I thought that was David Weber.
Yes.
Well, I mean, it's a toss-up between Aliens and Predator. I think they're on the same line there.
If you say so.
Drink your wine.
I will drink my wine and love it. My friend gave me a wine advent calendar. It's been glorious.
It's almost February.
I didn't say I only had one, did I? It's the perfect size bottle.
Welcome to the suck, Pete.
That's why I have scotch.
Bourbon here.
I normally go for bourbon, but not tonight. So Lord of the Rings.
I was gonna say I have to wait till after the show to drink because someone has to be the designated driver.
I'm not driving anywhere, so
I'm not driving anywhere.
I'm gonna drive my old ass to the couch after this.
You're not even gonna get that far. So, Lord of the Rings, Mulan. And you have to specify. Hopefully, you say that not the live action.
No, it actually says right here in the notes, 1998.
The animation one came out in 1998. JR sucks at math.
No, the live action one also came out in 98. It just didn't release in the US in 98. Thank you. Look it up. I did.
Oh, you looked up the right thing.
I don't think you.
If I'm wrong, I don't want anybody to tell me. Do not write that in the comment section in the Facebook group. Just let me have my delusions.
In the comment section in the Facebook group, I guarantee it.
No. So, or the 13th Warrior.
Ooh. Lord of the Rings, the 13th Warrior, a really close second.
See, one might consider Lord of the Rings a hiking movie.
There's heads getting chopped off. It's not a hiking movie.
They did walk a lot in Lord of the Rings. I give them that.
The Hobbits did. They walked a lot. Everybody else was wrecking shop and stacking bodies.
I know. That's why the hobbits are so cute and innocent.
They wreck some house and stack some bodies themselves too.
Yeah. And a few places.
So, are you tied or are you going to pick one?
No, he said Lord of the Rings, close second, 13th Warrior. The fireworm was awesome.
So,
13th Warrior is hands down the best version of Beowulf that's ever been put to film.
Agreed.
Yes. I'm just impressed that Nick understands literary references. So, before he tries to find a witty comeback,
Just like Keith, smart grunt.
What is it that you love about sci-fi or fantasy?
I probably got into it with Star Wars when I was a kid.
Attaboy.
And granted, I found a lot better stuff than Star Wars since then. But I like to write it because it gets away from some of the other stuff that I write, which is sometimes a little bit too real world. I can stretch a little bit more with science fiction and fantasy. And there's
a little bit more freedom, a little more creative freedom to.
Yeah. So, what's your first memory of speculative fiction? Was it Star Wars or was it something else?
I think it was probably the one of the little kids' Star Wars picture books from I don't remember how long ago. Long time.
In a galaxy far, far away.
I think I have some in the library. Because I was collecting Star Wars is my thing.
You have a lot of things.
Then I got into eventually as I got older and read more, got into Lester Del Rey, Heinlein's Juveniles, which are still his best work. And eventually the likes of David Drake and guys like that.
Drake's a really nice.
11 or 12-year-old, whenever I first picked up Hammer Slammers, that was
okay.
A very defining book.
Isn't that what you read on the way to boot camp?
What's that?
I was asking Doc, isn't that what she said she read on the way to boot camp?
No, it was not. It was March Upcountry. My mom gave me a book before I got to boot camp because she goes, when you're done, just give it to your drill sergeants because I'm sure they'll like it too. And it was March, I think it was March Upcountry by David Weber and John Ringo.
Okay. So
we finally admitted it in the chat.
Yes, I Googled it. I was going to try to do 2020, so it was all current movies. And that's where the live action came in. And then I couldn't find the theme I wanted, so I went farther back. And I wrote it in my notes wrong.
So
I messed up.
Mulan is
3 out of 4 panelists agree that you were wrong
2020.
as you said it. But
yeah.
We let you run with it because there's nothing more entertaining than foot in Jared's mouth.
2 strikes again.
I do that all the time. So I did get my obligatory 1 crown joke in. I'm told Walt said he threatened me with bodily harm if I got too many, but they'd take away my blue cord if I didn't do it at least once. It's a true story. So we've talked about why you love to write speculative fiction because it gives you some freedom from the real world stuff. But just overall, what do you love about it as a genre, just both as a writer and as a consumer of content?
It gets you away from the mundane. Sometimes it touches on things that the here and now can't quite wrap its arms around, particularly in the fantasy realm, depending on who's writing it. If it's Tolkien or Gene Wolfe, they get into some of the stuff that a lot of others can never even touch. Gets into kind of a little bit more metaphysical type stuff.
Okay. So how did your love of speculative fiction as a consumer transition into you deciding to write stories in this space?
Well, I wanted to be a science fiction writer originally, and that goes back to high school. I was reading some of the tie-in Wing Commander novels that Baen put out back in the day, and
I told you. How do you like the movie?
Awful.
Oh, see, I enjoyed the movie, but I hadn't read the books until after I watched.
I was a game fan long before the movie came out. And the movie just completely blew everything that had been built up.
That's why I liked it. Because I didn't know any better, because I didn't read the books until after the movie.
No.
I think that is really the key to happiness with those kind of properties.
Bill Bill Fortune did a little bit too much, just file the serial numbers off of the Pacific War and palette swap the Japanese with the Kilrathi in those books. But
Yeah.
I was in high school. Space battles are cool.
Always.
And I wanted more. So I started tinkering with writing some of my own of same sort of stuff. It was Wing Commander with the serial numbers filed off because I was in high school. No one will ever see those manuscripts ever.
How much would they have to pay you to see them? We all have a price.
Millions.
$1 billion. All right. So
I think that's the only military sci-fi that Lackey ever did.
Possibly. And she only did one.
Yeah. Well, I read hers because I read almost anything Lackey puts out.
Fair. So many authors let their own real life experiences influence the stories they tell. So are there any specific formidable moments that shape you as a storyteller?
Well, mostly what I write is combat. And I've made no bones for several years about the fact that particularly none of my military thriller stuff is autobiographical. Because I did a couple of combat tours in Iraq, a shorter one in Afghanistan, and then I contracted for years. And yeah, I got in a few fights, but nothing near like the kind of stuff that I write. But the training, the experience of actually being in a firefight, that all goes in, whether it's in the military science fiction stuff, the military fantasy stuff like The Lost, or my military thriller stuff, which I've done a lot more of.
So have you ever found that when you're incorporating that military stuff into your writing, that some of the stuff that you actually experienced, if you wrote that, nobody would actually believe it?
Oh, not the Humvee incident, which I heard.
I wasn't going to go there. I'm just asking him. He's the guest.
Not really. I had a fairly ordinary set of deployments.
Okay.
It didn't help that most of the time the commanders who were attached to had no idea how to use recon. So,
yeah, well, at least that's not just true in the Corps; it's true in the military or in the Army as well.
I thought in there you just tell recon go here and you let them figure out everything else.
If you weren't a officer control freak, that would make sense. But if you're terrified of anybody doing anything that might potentially reflect badly in your OER down the road,
there it is.
See, I'm much more like, hey, I didn't have to deal with it.
So the other problem with the Marine Corps is, were you in there after the Haditha incident? Were you overseas after that? I think that was what, 2005?
I first ended up in country in fall of 2005.
So they would have all been running gun shy after that with the witch hunt that became. And we won't go into it because it's political, but that does affect how the rules of engagement are interpreted.
Oh,
and the later in the war, the later in the war, the crappier they got for everybody.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. Yeah. All right, Nick, you're on deck.
Oh,
let's see if he knows what he's doing.
He's a little rusty.
I really don't. I'm going to wing it like I've done everything in my life so far, and it's worked out pretty good so far. So.
Ish. Pretty good ish.
Okay. Yeah, ish. We'll go with ish. Well, speaking of military science fiction, your bio states that you were part of Uncle Sam's Misguided Children. Do love my baby brothers. Do you think your time there affects the stories that you tell? I know we kind of glossed over it, but
with the exceptions of the military science fiction that I've written, which is set far, far in the future, where nobody even knows exactly where Earth is anymore, if there's even anything left of it. But that one exception, all of my main characters are all former Marines, either recondos or regular grunts.
Oh, that's good. That's going to lead to our next question, which is, have you ever drawn people that drawn from people that you knew in the military?
All the time. Guys I've worked with in the Corps, guys I've worked with on contract. At least one is a character, and he knows he's a character. And apparently, he gave his mom a copy of the book and said, "I'm in it. I'm probably going to die because Pete kills everyone."
Oh,
That's
awesome.
Nobody's
You should give your red shirts, like the shirt I was killed in a Peter Nealon book, and all I got was a stupid T-shirt.
There was actually a guy I was working on contract a few years back who bugged me constantly. Put him in a book. Put him in a book. So I put him in the Third American Praetorian book and promptly blew him in half with an IED.
Oof.
Route Mobile.
The worst way to go.
You know what?
I
JR
told
told
him-
me the entire reason to start
man.
writing is so that you can just kill people.
Yeah.
I warned him. I warned him. You keep pestering me, you might end up in it, but you might not like what happens.
You're going to be in a book, but you ain't going to like the outcome, bud.
You know what? Every time my name has appeared in a book, with the exception of one circumstance, I've been a villain.
You're definitely a villain in my
So that-
comic book universe.
That checks out. I approve.
The funny thing is, it even happens when they didn't know me when they put the name in.
No, I know you.
Okay.
And you're the Spider Queen in the Apogee universe as the main villain. Spider Queen.
That will be interesting art to see, but we will move on.
Oh, I'm going to draw it too. That's the thing. You get to see me draw Siska.
Oh god!
I might pay money to have a copy of that just to laugh. Maybe we frame it next to the picture of her blushing with it. That'd be hilarious.
She's fully clothed in it, bud. Calm down.
Incest is not best, JR. Stop it.
Well, it depends on what part of Arkansas you're in.
And everyone from Arkansas can send their hate mail to Nick Garber at blastersblazepodcast.com.
Anyway, does your time in
Well,
service affect the kind of stories that you engage with as a reader?
Yeah. If it's a military story and the author has not done their research, it's probably going to get tossed at the wall.
Absolutely.
One of the zombie Tom Clancy novels, after he was dead, I got about a quarter to a third of the way through, and when old boy is leaping through the air, double fisting Glocks, shooting at the bad guys with friendlies downrange, I chucked it.
So
Sounds legit.
valid
Yeah,
reasons
reasonable.
to get reasonable reasons to get
If
upset.
you ever rocked Guns Akimbo and Halo, you know you're not hitting shit.
So how long how much latitude do you give authors to be creative in their space with tactics, given if they say this is what this weapon platform is capable of, now let me use it creatively? Are you going to give them room to be creative if it at least makes sense on a smell test? Or are you going to be strict to the book as you understand it? To the book as in the tactics you were taught?
If it makes sense in the smell test.
Okay.
As far as tactics go, tactics change all the time.
That's true.
Especially having been in the business for a long time, I've seen tactics do all sorts of weird loopy things. And hey, try this out. And like doctrine from before is like, no way, that's stupid. Why would I do that? And then you try it out and it's like, holy crap, that actually worked.
Okay.
But if it makes sense within the story and it's still a good story and it's not abjectly stupid, I might consider it.
Okay, that's fair.
If it's old boy going through the door with an M14 on full auto, no, that's dumb.
I just recently read a book and the author describes a M16 as a big gun. And I'm like, it's not that big.
No.
Luckily, that is the one and only time she does it.
My favorite is there's a British
For
author.
any kind of gun.
There's a British author who recalled every machine gun. It was an assault rifle. And I'm like, okay, you're overusing the term. I know it's in the news today, but come on. Everything is not an assault rifle.
I know it's chic.
It's a very specific
However,
definition.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, assault rifle it's not a thing.
Well, assault weapon is not a thing. Assault rifle is a select fire rifle and an intermediate cartridge.
Oh, they got a term for. Well, they got a definition behind the term now. That's good. I like an assault rock. I think it gets street cred.
Well, the assault rifle comes from the German Sturmgewehr, which was designed so that an assaulting force could lay down its own cover fire without needing a machine gun organic to the unit. Specifically, it is a select fire weapon in an intermediate caliber. So it's not a full-size battle rifle, and it's capable of full automatic fire, which all of these politicos throwing around assault weapons don't understand that, don't know it, and they're talking about semi-autos and calling them assault weapons, which they're not.
I like assault rocks. Those aren't banned yet. So, all right, Doc, it's your favorite set of questions. Remember, we edited them. They're not quite the way they used to be.
That's just because you wanted to see if you could trip me up, and you're going to be wrong. So, getting into some of the fan stuff, have you had any cool fan art or somebody cosplay one of your characters yet?
There was one individual who did a digital drawing of the the main character in my American Praetorian series. I've also seen a few people try to build gear and weapon setups based on some of my characters and teams in a couple of my series, particularly usually an M14 M1A setup for American Praetorians because the main character used a SOCOM 16. Not because I own one or anything, of course not.
That would be random.
Does that make his weapon setup tax deductible? Asking for a friend. It's work product research.
May have bought some guns and ammo and gear tax deductible for my contracting work. I know a dude who wrote off $10,000 worth of guns one year. It's Blackwater.
I need a better.
Now I'm going to have to call my tax consultant and see what we can work out.
JR,
I could justify it because it was all for training or specifically for work. So I started taking a lot of my own gear to work because why would I use the crap the issue?
Fair. All right. Keep going with the fandom questions. Don't hold back, Doc.
I'm just waiting for you to stop talking about your mommy. So,
wait, what?
Your tax consultant.
No, H&R Block. Jeez, why don't they sponsor? Well, because you just made fun of them. That's why H&R Block won't sponsor us. Thanks, Doc. Thanks. Now you want to make a bourbon because he was going to buy some with the money we were going to get.
Oh, JR, it's all fine. Anyways, so has anyone asked for your autograph out in public? I already told Nick I'd give him bourbon if he ever managed to find me.
I mean,
I've taken books to sell locally sometimes, and people want autographs then.
So, well, I mean, I never buy a book from an author without getting an autograph. There's no point. So, what was the first time that you signed a book in like?
Oy.
It was like holding a pen.
Yeah, it was like holding a pen and scribbling my illegible scrawl across the title page.
Like all good authors do.
Did you date it?
Wait, we're supposed to date him when we sign him?
No, not that
kind of. It adds extra value.
The date, the time. No, not.
I knew that. Jeez, Nick, it's not that bad. I didn't know that. No one ever.
You don't ask him out for coffee. I mean, I guess you could take your shot, bud.
I don't date him. No, I just sign him.
I'm just teasing. Besides, it's really fun to watch JR trip over his own feet about the concept of a date of any kind.
Ouch. I'm going to go cry in my corner now. All right.
Go get your whoopee. It'll be fine.
Let the hazing continue, right, until morale improves?
Pretty much.
It's going to make you a stronger man.
So have you spotted somebody reading one of your books out in the wild? He's been putting up with this for years.
I have not specifically, but apparently there was somebody who came by the farmer's market this last summer who had found one of mine in a used bookstore somewhere on the other side of the country and said, "Oh, wow, I need all the rest of these."
Awesome.
That's awesome. So before we move on, real quick, so the fan art that you got, is that something that you would be able to share with your readers if they wanted to sign up for your newsletter?
Yeah,
maybe share it next month, and if you can find it. So there you go. You might be able to see that awesome fan art if you follow him, join the newsletter, do the things, people. So
you do the things.
I'm gonna do the thing. We're gonna talk about.
I still have one more fan question.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, she does.
Jesus, I can't count tonight. All right, ask the fan question.
Chair can't do math. So
math is hard.
It's not that hard.
That's what she said.
We do 10 base math, and you have 10 fingers and 10 toes. You'll be fine. This may be why my son doesn't come to me for math homework problems, but he does have an A in math. So,
well, you're doing something right.
Anyways, God knows what, I don't know. What is your funniest or weirdest interaction with a fan that you feel comfortable sharing?
Well, there was one individual who was absolutely convinced, no matter how many times I told him otherwise, that at least my first novel was a fictionalized version of and real mission that I had actually been on.
But it wasn't.
No, it's not even close. But he did not want to. Didn't want to hear it. He was absolutely sure. I just couldn't tell him. It was because it was classified.
I've noticed that among somebody like, and that person is a diehard fan. You want them. They're going to buy everything you put on paper, but you can't convince them otherwise. What they have built up in their head as this meant this.
Okay, just as long as they stop before the weird psycho, you have to hire security.
Before they start going Robert De Niro in the fan. Yeah.
Oh no, I know somebody who had. She wrote a novel.
That is also a book
involving a cult.
Written.
But somebody decided that it was about their cult. That was a problem.
Well, I'm pretty sure Peter would be okay if they came a knocking. I mean, he's probably got like a rifle in every room or a shotgun or something. He'll be okay.
No comment.
You know what? We'll just say that Peter is very secure in his security.
I had a fan come up questioning about a fictional cult I had in my comic. Like, how do you know about this? I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, first, I just drew it. I just drew the thing. I didn't write the story. He's like, well, how did the writer know about the cult? I'm like, we made it out of thin air, guy. Like we thought it was a fictional cult. Like, how do you know about
All right, so we don't want to get too weird and scare everyone. But if you're interested, you can go to his Apogee website. It's all linked in the show notes, and you can buy the dang thing and find out for yourself. Mama needs a new pair of shoes. Miss Stabby's going to get him if he doesn't sell another one. So do your part, people.
A new pair of shoes too, a new set of Vans she got off Poshmark. That's a thing.
I don't know. We're going to move on, and we're going to pause for a moment while we shamelessly shill for the man.
They picked a fight with the wrong species. A nation at war. The United Stars of America, born in the conflagration of an unprovoked alien attack, the newest entrant to galactic politics took the few crumbs of hypertech gifted to it and ran with them, soon expanding over dozens of star systems and establishing a wide trade network, protected by its powerful navy and the dreaded Warp Marines. In a fight to the death, a single Marine platoon tasked with protecting an embassy on a hostile alien planet, an embassy and the fragile human enclave around it, that soon finds itself surrounded by armed mobs. Can the Marines and a ragtag band of civilian and Navy personnel survive long enough to be rescued?
All right. Yeah, we shilled. All right, we're done shilling now. All right, commercial is over. Let us move on. Jeez, Nick, I can dress you up, but I can't take you anywhere.
Yeah, but I look
All
good
right.
wherever I go because I'm dressed up.
It does. So this is the part where we talk about everything Peter has written. Peter Nealon, can you give us the Reader's Digest version of your body of work? What have you put out?
Okay. I have one completed series called the American Praetorian series, which is predominantly following a PMC against initially jihadi terrorists and eventually narcos and sinister forces in the United States itself. That's 5 books completed in 2017. Shortly thereafter, I started the Brannigan's Blackheart series, the 10th of which, Blood Debt, just came out back in December. And that is a bit more of a 80s style action adventure. There's a continuity, but each book is still somewhat standalone. Mercs get the job, mercs go do the job. Lots of people get shot or blown up. And on to the next one. Then in 2019, I started the Maelstrom Rising series, which is essentially my grunt's eye view of what would the next world war look like if it started in the next 5 to 10 years. Unfortunately, the real world seems to be hell-bent on catching up and rendering that timeline a little overly optimistic.
Oh, wow.
I've also got a military science fiction space opera series through Aethon Books called The Unity Wars, which was my take on what if the Clone Wars weren't dumb? And
That is fair. But then it wouldn't be Star Wars.
I don't think the Clone Wars were dumb.
I liked the Clone Wars, but okay.
And have you watched the Bad Batch? Oh my God.
Hey, you know how you know a Star Wars fan? They're the ones crying as they watch it in pain.
No, just when we watched the Book of Boba Fett.
Oh God, don't get me started on that.
You've gotten a lot farther than I have, Nick. I gave up on Star Wars years ago.
You should see.
There are 3 movies.
I'll tell you what. Anytime you want to come out down to sunny San Diego and come visit, you can hang out.
Nobody wants to go to San Diego.
They do because I have the Star Wars room, and it's the best thing you're going to find outside of Skywalker Ranch.
I have a
Star Wars 6'2" biker scout just chilling.
There are 3 movies. They're awesome, but it's too bad they never made any past the 3.
I can appreciate that. If you want to be even sadder for all of you browncoats out there, the people that made Boba Fett are going to be making the new version of Firefly.
Gross.
For Disney.
And half my soul just died because
So on that downer,
I am a lifelong browncoat.
All of those books sound fascinating, but today we're going to talk about Ice and Monsters. So where did you get the premise for this universe? How did you come up with it? Was it psychedelics, a Ouija board, overindulging in expired MREs?
I've actually had one of those, and that was not a good time.
Been there, brother. I've been there.
So leave corned beef and hash alone.
Actually, a few months back, Nick Cole hits me up and says, I have a project in mind if you're interested.
Oh, shit.
Uh-oh.
When Nick Cole asks if you're interested in doing a project as a writer, you say yes.
Is that what you're supposed to say?
It's like talking to Zool.
He sent me a reader's copy of Forgotten Ruin.
Okay, so all right, I'm going to let you continue, and then I have questions.
I read it.
I have sarcastic comments.
I read it, and got the wheels were starting to turn. I asked him, so you want me to write a spinoff in this universe? He says, no, we want your series in this genre.
Not a genre.
So, being me, it had to be Recon Marines instead of Rangers. And,
well, I mean, everybody, there's nothing wrong with the Kirkland brand, bro. Okay. And I say it with love. I respect what you guys do. Some of my best friends are.
Let's replace that. Rangers lead the way with a quick, swift, silent, deadly, and we'll call it.
I'll give you that. That's actually cooler.
All right, Nick, you need a moment. You gonna recover from that answer? Oh, we broke him. All right,
the army started it.
We're gonna save him with some glorious art. So
Swift.
No, you forgot Swift. Swift, you Brussels sprout.
That wasn't me. Don't blame me for that one. All right, so
before we dig, not JR's fault. He's broken. It's the army's.
It's not his fault. He's a leg. I mean, it is his fault because he didn't volunteer. But whatever.
I got hurt before I could, so you hush. But before we dig into all of that, we're going to take a moment and look at this glorious cover. So can you – I see what you did there, Nick. Leg lives matter, people.
No, they don't.
No, they don't. Wait, I'm sorry.
Right, let's do it this way. There we go.
That's freaking wicked.
So can you tell us how this glorious piece of art came to be?
Well – that was pretty much Jason set that up and sent me the initial part. And initially it didn't have the trees, but given where it was supposed to be set, I said it needs the trees and it needs some red eyes under the trees.
There's no red.
If you look real closely, there are
zoom in.
Monster eyes.
There they are.
There they are.
They're towards the base of the trees. They're laying.
They look like people who are hungover. No, I'm kidding.
It is ice and monsters. And there's a lot of monsters.
I'm glad we zoomed in because for a second I thought that little glowy thing was a reflector belt. I'm like, did he go full army?
It's a chem light.
I did ask, what's with the glow sticks? And the answer was to sell books.
Yeah.
That's
nobody's wearing glow sticks as their
no, but you can't have it all dark.
Yeah,
it's true.
Yeah, it was for some contrast and some.
What I really dig, though,
artsy fartsy guy.
I was getting ready to go into artsy fartsy mode, and you're over here running your. I'm not going to say it.
Drink your bourbon, Doc. He's busy doing grown-up artist stuff.
Jesus.
Continue, Nick.
Some of the things I really enjoy about this, there's some contrast here with the light and dark. It really pops out the central figure, which the air vapor that is being chilled coming out of his mouth makes him look like a really badass Santa Claus, which I dig, because he's checking a list and he's got a list and he's checking it twice, and he's going to throw some hate towards some monsters. So I definitely dig that. It does have a lot of drama in the piece. You know, it does.
I like the detail around the lettering, to be honest.
That's really cool too. I was just about to mention that the typography that you have going on here, and I don't know who's in control of that, but whoever it was did a really fantastic job. It's a big gamble to put texture inside text, especially when it's ice on an ice background. You know, so there's a possibility that it could be lost. But I think overall, it's really awesome. I think the text works well with the imagery that we have in the background, and I love the little. You really have to zoom in to see the eyes. So I think that's really cool too, because that's things that most of your readers aren't going to notice, but you're guys that like to really zoom in and really take in the artwork and be like, oh my God, there's eyes in the tree line, you know. And probably
what I like about it is honestly, you're going to pull in some of the guys who like the Tom Clancy books with that kind of a cover.
Well, I mean, after you bashed Tom, I'm afraid to admit that I was or currently am a Tom Clancy fan, but I haven't read anything of Tom Clancy since Rainbow Six. So
I don't care. He sells books.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing.
Does it count if it was written after he died, when it was the zombie writer as
No.
Tom Clancy book?
No, it doesn't.
No, but I mean, you're going to pull in some of the people who maybe kind of edging into fantasy, but not quite. Because like some of Tom Clancy and some other stuff would be very urban SF, even. So,
yeah, I mean, and a lot of them, yeah.
Pull in some of those people because.
Oh, Tom Clancy.
So.
In the strictest sense of the word, Tom Clancy was writing science fiction by the time it was over.
Yeah.
No, I can agree with that.
With his obsession with gadgets and push buttons.
Oh, this. Are you talking about Splinter Cell? Because God, I wish I had some of that stuff.
But yeah, but I mean, it has kind of that almost that vibe.
You know, the
books, particularly like Executive Orders and particularly The Bear and the Dragon, where
yeah, it started getting a little.
But we're not here to talk.
We'll get there.
One second. Well, I'm going to start skipping questions if we don't start talking about the book.
A leash helmet on.
I was just going to say we're not here to. Oh, we lost him. He left. We're not here to talk about Tom Clancy. He's not as cool as Peter. So let's talk about Peter's book.
No, we are talking about
next
Peter's
question.
book.
Peter's cool. Look at the cover he let you drool over.
I know, and I just talked it up too. It's a really cool cover.
All right,
now we're moving on.
The book.
Well, JR, if you let me finish a damn sentence, I can go on to moving on to the book itself, where I can ask Peter about his 30-second elevator pitch for this novel. But you're not going to let me do that, are you? You're not going to let me do that.
Are we done?
Yeah, we put the phone in this
we're done.
What can I say? We were having a moment.
Oh, my God. Welcome to the show.
Right.
Moving on to the book itself. Can you give us your 30-second elevator pitch for this novel?
So, a recon platoon is on a Marine Expeditionary Unit float off the coast of Norway, doing an amphibious insert to a training op outside of Trondheim. And it's July, but they end up going into a fog bank. And when they come out of the fog bank, they're not in Kansas anymore. And first inkling they get of this is when a bunch of sea trolls come up out of the ocean and start trying to eat their faces off.
That would do it.
So will you ever get into how that transition happened? Is that something that we get answers for?
I don't know. Maybe.
Okay.
They're still guessing.
Just Eric Flint it with like he did in 1632. Maybe the reader knows, but they don't ever have to know.
Ooh, that's always a nice little touch. But
there's
Portal fantasy and alternate history aren't new to me.
As the series progresses, there are some indicators that someone or something reached across space in time to pull them in.
Do you touch into Norse mythology at all?
I dipped much more into Irish mythology.
Ooh, attaboy.
While the spelling's changed a little bit and the O has disappeared from the front of my name, there used to be an O on my last name. And so there's a bit of my own heritage that I dug into for that. But there's a lot of Irish, a little bit of Finnish mythology mixed in with it.
That's really cool that you were able to merge those two things together.
That's nice.
I like the old stories.
If you're listening, dear reader, and you have a favorite myth, or you want to link to some really cool source material, we'd love for you to do that in the Facebook group where all the shenanigans happen.
Just no more ancient Egyptian stuff. We've had our fill.
But I love Stargate.
Yeah, who doesn't? Moving on to the next question. No, I'm very interested in this series, but I really want to hear from the author's tongue of what you think is particularly special about this.
Well, like I said, I tried to go into a lot. I've found that a lot of fantasy over the last couple of decades has become very derivative of itself. And I like to go back to the old stories, the kind of the roots that it came out of, because some of them are absolutely badass.
Are you talking like, back when it was tribalism and you're gathered around the campfire and you're telling those types of stories? Is that what you're talking about?
Those types of stories.
Those are awesome, and I love those. Those are probably the best and the most interesting, and they teach about the world around you, is what I always found. when you
Right. That's what they were always about in the first place.
Right.
Was it's a dangerous world out there, and sometimes you need a little bit more of an outlandish story to really get home just how dangerous it really is.
Oh, absolutely. 100% agree. That's great that you incorporated that.
Oh, yeah. There's, especially as the series goes on, you'll see that a lot of the monsters didn't necessarily start out as monsters.
Okay.
They a lot of them started out as men, and their choices on a moral and mystical level changed them.
Okay.
So do you play a lot with those moral questions, or is it more incidental byproduct of the larger story?
Yes and no. I'd say yes to both. A lot of it's very much in the background. It is very much an action story. There's a lot of shooting monsters in the face.
But you do.
I'm in.
And a lot of we just came ashore with one combat load. We have 0 support. We have 0 resupply, and ammo's running out fast. So we need to learn to use other stuff like swords and axes.
Nice. And if you're paying attention or you're listening, the cover that we're sharing is the audiobook cover, which proudly tells us that this will be performed by Mark Boyette, who's an awesome narrator. What a find on that one.
He's narrated some other stuff before.
Yeah, he's done some good stuff. I like him.
Yeah. Yeah, I recognize that name.
Nick?
Oh, sorry. I take the cover off, man. I'm getting lost in the chem light there. Ranger TV. All right, so we covered what makes your series special, and it does. I really like where your thought process is in developing this. Tropes. It's a thing that writers do. What tropes do you feel that Ice and Monsters hits the best? Like,
not always being able to trust your command.
Oh, I mean, you're speaking my language right there.
Yeah. I can't say I ever had an officer quite as bad as the platoon commander, but I came awfully close.
Oof. Yeah. Well, definitely plaster them all over and make you a lot of money. The strife that he caused, definitely.
Yeah.
You want to throw his name out there? Really put him to shame?
No, we don't want him to get sued. We want him to keep writing books.
Oh. All right. Message me privately. I got to know. Make sure I don't know this guy.
But it's part of the recon creed is as a recon Marine, I will never quit. To be a recon Marine is to surpass failure, to adapt, overcome, and do whatever it takes to complete the mission. And that's what these guys have to do. They have to adapt to a situation that none of them ever expected to find themselves in, and a set of enemies that are not like nothing they've ever encountered. And the rules that they're used to, even those who are somewhat more human, even those guys were veterans. The rules of war that they're used to don't necessarily apply anymore, because some of the stuff that come up against doesn't die honestly when it's shot in the right places. So they got to find other ways to adapt.
Right.
Furthermore, they've got to figure out, like, there's a point towards the beginning where we don't like light at night because we hide in the darkness. That's what recon does. But it's middle of the winter. There's 1.5 feet of snow on the ground. When they inserted it was July. They don't have a lot of warming layers. It is fire or death. And they've got to wrap their heads around that and make it happen.
Damn, I gotta sacrifice noise and light discipline so I can keep warm and continue the fight.
And live.
And live, yeah. Yeah,
Living is
shit
always
gets
a good
cold.
thing.
All right. I mean, we know this book falls into a male fantasy genre, but do you think it fits any subgenres as well?
Well, it's technically an action adventure novel, a military thriller, military fantasy, mythological fantasy story, portal fantasy. I'm running
That's
out
an
of
impressive list. That's an impressive list. All right, Doc.
So
Put the knitting down.
I'm not knitting. So you make me sound like an old woman, and I'm going to stab you in your sleep. So,
Well, I mean,
The
we're getting
knitting
closer to
needle?
bedtime and it's time for tea, but whatever.
you know, anyway, don't make me make a fireball for you. Why don't you tell us a bit about the main character in this book?
Main character is a team leader, Staff Sergeant Connor McCall. He is a veteran of some action in Syria, and this is not his first float. He's butted heads with his platoon commander before, but what he finds is when he finds himself in this strange, ancient sort of world that in some ways he's a lot more at home here than he was in the real world that he came from.
I think we can all identify that we don't always fit where we start. So do you have any secondary characters, though, that are particularly memorable that won't be a spoiler to tell us about?
Some of my favorites would be spoilers, but you got Gunny Taylor, who's the platoon sergeant, and Gunny Taylor is somewhat based on one of my platoon sergeants, probably the best platoon sergeant I ever had. And if there's anybody who's holding the platoon together as everything gets weird, it's Gunny Taylor. Because despite everything that the captain comes up with, the Marines all respect Gunny Taylor and they'd follow him into hell and back if he went, because he's that kind of guy.
I think we've all, if you've ever been in the service, there's always that one. Hopefully more than one, but you always find at least one. So,
yeah.
So can you tell us a bit about the villain in this, or would that be too much of a spoiler?
That might be a little bit too much of a spoiler.
Okay.
Can you tell us what the eyes are in the picture then?
Exactly who the bad guys are. Let's just say that the Marines find themselves in an unknown wilderness where they're surrounded by bad guys and worse guys. And they've got to try and navigate that particular snake pit. No, there are not snake people in this one. Just to cover that. It's too cold.
So, if your characters were to meet you in a back alley, how do you think you'd fare?
Given all the torturous things you've done to them by sending them to this ice world full of monsters.
Well, they're brother recon Marines, so hopefully we'd
At least be able to talk it out a little.
have a drink and go back to work. At most, we might have a fight and then have a drink and go back to work.
Could you take your main character?
What's that?
Could you take your main character in that fight?
Not that different from me, so probably.
You like shadow boxing. Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. So, Doc, you get to ask your second favorite question in the interview now. Oh, you just did. Duh. I blame Nick for this. I don't know how that's his fault, but we're still going to blame him.
We're going to just say that he threw off your Zen or something like that. Be nice to the guy with the head trauma, Nick.
He's sending me taunting messages about dirty, nasty legs. It's just not fair. But anyway, so finally, what can you tell us about the universe itself? You have implied that a lot of the mystery involved with some of the bad guys and stuff is, I almost said classified, but it would be spoiler territory. But what can you tell us that wouldn't spoil the story about the world they get sort of thrust into?
Well, I probably can say that they find that there are sea trolls in the ocean, and they're kind of difficult to kill, and they're pretty vicious. And the tribes inland have certain sentinels set up to try and keep the sea trolls back. They don't get along with the sea trolls. All of them are fairly vicious. I borrowed a lot from Indo-European for the names and some of the words that are used with the tribes that they beat. Later on in the series, there are names that are borrowed from Gaelic, Finnish, and Estonian, actually. But I wanted all the names to have a meaning, even if I kind of bastardized the words and names themselves.
Okay.
But
did using those names get you any angry messages from Mark Boyette when he had to pronounce them?
No, actually not. I did. There was a pronunciation guide I had to put together to begin with, and again, some of the Gaelic names are bastard Gaelic, so they're a little bit easier than actual straightforward Gaelic, where half the letters aren't pronounced and the other half aren't necessarily pronounced the way they look.
Yeah, one of my favorite authors of all time. Her degree was in Slavic languages. She lived in Ireland.
Well,
I don't even bother trying.
Polish is pretty bad. Russian's fairly straightforward.
If you really, yeah, if you really want to make the narrator mad, use Welsh names because none of that's like it should be, and then he's just going to cry and quit the business. But so Ice and Monsters is. Go ahead. Oh, so
I take up too much page space putting in Welsh names.
This is also true. Although I think the longest word known to man is actually in German, if I remember.
I think it's a toss-up between German or Welsh.
So
German just tacks on words on top of words on top of words on top of words and calls it all one word.
Yeah. So Ice and Monsters is clearly part of a series. We know because it says it on Amazon, and we've talked about that in the pre-show and somewhat on the podcast. There's currently only one book out in all formats: audiobook, ebook, paperback. Probably hardback will be coming soon. But where is this story going? Where do you see this going for the characters?
Well, again, some of that's getting into spoiler territory, particularly for the end of Ice and Monsters.
Well, do you think it's going to be 3, or do you think it's going to be more than 3?
I'm hoping it's going to be more than 3. I've already got an arc for at least 8 figured out. So
this, do you think you're going to, and obviously this is pure speculation, people, because you haven't read the other books, but do you plan on sticking in this ice and monster world, or are you going to expand on wherever the continent that they're on? Or are you going to move around, do you think?
Well, there's going to be some moving around, definitely. There's already some moving around in book 2.
Okay, that sounds fun. So we all know that every literary universe has its own internally consistent rules of science, technology, and magic. So what sort of tech and then magic can we expect from this book? The reason I asked the tech is I don't know what era they left from. Is it near future, way in the future? And then, what sort of magic on the other side?
They left 5 minutes into the future. In some ways, it's recon from today, but in more ways, it's recon that I was in just with some of the slightly newer toys, like PVS 15s instead of 14s. I tell some people that I did a workup with PVS 7 Bravos, and they look at me like, I'm really? Like, yeah, that's how poor we were. So they got a little bit of the newer toys, but it's very much the recon that I spent time in.
Okay.
As for they will discover a source of resupply, but at the same time, they're going to be adapting more to the styles of warfare that they find in this new world. And so I have to say that is predominantly from a physical, in a physical form, like the aforementioned swords, axes, clubs, spears, what have you. Because when you get into, let's just say that sorcery is extremely dangerous.
Okay.
You have alchemy?
Kinda, sorta.
I love alchemy.
More in it doesn't really come in the first book, but it's a little bit more of a little bit more is the kind of thing you might get handed by Legolas or something like that. It's not alchemy in terms of, well, we put these sorts of things together. It's these particular people have this stuff. And I'll just kind of leave it at that for right now. I don't want to get too far into spoiler territory. And there's a lot that happens that between Ice and Monsters and Shadows and Crows.
Okay.
That's fair. We do not want spoilers in this interview, so you'll have to read the book, people, if you want more answers than that.
Yeah.
All right, Nick, you're up. That means you got to unmute yourself. Boomer, what are you going to do?
Rookie mistake. I am sorry, because I had a couple of good jabs at you, too, that nobody's going to hear. All right, so of all the tech and magic that you invented for your universe, which one would you want to have for your daily use?
I would say the the item that they don't actually come across until book 2, which, to use Nick Cole's term, the infinite taco machine.
Ooh.
You ask it for stuff, and it might give it to you.
Perpetual tacos. Now I'm hungry. All right.
Well, it seems like a silly question now. I mean, how would you abuse that technology?
Golden ammo.
Attaboy.
I would have been okay with tacos, like actual tacos.
Yeah, we know, JR. We know.
I don't know.
West Coast tacos. West Coast tacos.
Now we're gonna have to do a fireside chat on tacos, but until then.
I am the subject matter expert on tacos, bro.
JR is just a garbage disposal. He just eats them. He doesn't make them.
Yeah, but tacos
I'm
are
learning
delicious.
to cook you hard. Nick, save her from herself and keep going.
Yes, sir. Ranger that. Does your universe have aliens or fantastical creatures in it? We saw the bright lit eyes in the cover. Can you expand upon that?
There are a lot of creatures.
And they're mostly from like Norse and Celtic mythology, yeah?
Yeah. With some variations. I mean, I didn't just copy paste.
You put some spin on it?
Put some spin on them. Particularly the some of them are no two are exactly the same.
Okay.
So I had to come up. I'm continuing to have to come up with descriptions of new and new and strange deformities and such from these red-eyed things.
Well, and that's interesting that you said that, because it kind of segues into the next question, where usually we just talk about how you created these sort of things, and yeah, we know a lot of them came from folklore that you researched, and you put your own spin on there. Now, where did that inspiration to put those spins come from? Was it like nightmares, or did you just kind of look at them, realistically, how they would develop, like a nature type thing, like how these things would progress in the future? Like, how did that happen?
That was a combination of just, in some ways, reading over the years, looking back into some of them I've found by just looking back into some of the old medieval bestiaries, where you've got like the dudes with no head and their face in the middle of their chest.
Oh, those are awesome.
Stuff like that. And it's just kind of, okay, how can I change this to make it cool? Or scary, because, I mean,
based on where you needed them to be and what you needed to be, right?
Yeah. Like there's one point where there's a particular band of monsters who act as hunters for one of their higher level creatures, and just
so
taking.
Would you say there's a hierarchy within the? Would you say there's a hierarchy within the monsters in your universe?
Oh yeah, there's definitely a hierarchy, to the point some of them are actually worshipped as gods.
Oh, okay, that's awesome. That's great. I ask the tough questions sometimes.
So is this book
stupid?
I don't think you're stupid.
So
I know who you are.
Is this written in third person POV, or is it first person?
No, this is first person from Connor's point of view.
Connor, I was just about to ask that. Who's the narrator?
Yeah.
Is it the whole series going to be from his POV, or do you switch that up on later books?
So far, the whole series is going to be his point of view. I don't do a lot of first person, and it seems to work. So,
okay.
If Connor doesn't die by the end of the series, I'm going to be disappointed.
Wait, no, why would I kill his main character?
Because that always makes the most interesting character. He's like, he goes through all of the trials and tribulations
of Desperate Housewives in the early seasons, didn't you?
Don't judge me. We don't kink shame here.
All right, Doc.
But yes, I'm sorry. It definitely changed how I feel. Like, I'm going to kill my main character in my comic book universe here pretty soon. Just because I like a little razzle dazzle. I don't know.
Fair.
Okay. So clearly everything's winding down except for Nick. He's winding himself up again.
Like this till 2 a.m. Hit me up on Snapchat.
This is why you have an OnlyFans.
Or my OnlyFans, which I always like the other girls say, I always respond to DMs on my OnlyFans.
He's not joking. He actually has one, Peter.
Wow.
It's all his comments.
I have to tell this story every episode, don't I?
No.
If you came on more often.
It wasn't meant for sexual content. It was meant to get my art out there. I didn't know it was for pounding. And here I am getting requests for feet and other weird stuff. And I'm getting to the point now where my bank account is saying, do that. Sell pictures of your feet.
I've seen what infantrymen's feet look like, even ones that didn't do a lot of walking.
They look like caveman feet, man. Caveman feet. We have hairy knuckles on our toes. We look like hobbits. Basically, a caveman's foot is a hobbit's foot. It's a hobbit's foot. That's what it is. It's this.
And so now that I've muted him, is there anything that we didn't cover that you'd like to talk about?
Without getting into spoiler territory, I don't really think so. I mean, there's action, there's gunfights, there's blood and gore, there's scary monsters, there's heroism, there's really cool stuff.
So I'm going to steal JR's next statement, which is always, dear listeners and viewers, please remember to review on all the appropriate reviewing platforms. And, please be kind, speak your mind. The right reviews help the right readers find the right books. But Peter, how can our listeners and fans find you?
I do have my own website at AmericanPraetorians.com. And I'm also on Facebook, for better or worse, at Pete Nealon Author. And you can also sign up for the newsletter on AmericanPraetorians.com. You actually get an American Praetorians novella set on the border with Mexico when you sign up.
Okay. So you can find us on our Twitter at twitter.com/SF_fantasy_show, twitter.com/SF_fantasy_show. You can email the show at blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. Direct all hate mail to Nick Garber at blastersandbladespodcast.com. You can join us for all the shenanigans over there on facebook.com/groups/Blasters and Blades Podcast. Again, /groups/Blasters and Blades Podcast. Be sure to put all of your conspiracy theories and predictions for where this universe is going to go in the comment section, and we'll see if we can get Peter to admit to something. Probably not, but you can try. Join the discussion over there. It's a lot of fun. And if you have any memes where you can make fun of the lawn darts and all those people jumping out of perfectly good airplanes because leg lives matter, I'm okay with that too. You could join our website on anchor.fm/blasters-and-blades. Again, anchor.fm/blasters-and-blades. At some point this year, we do plan on getting up spooling up an actual proper website, but that is where all of our podcasts in audio format are hosted. You can support the show at the anchor.fm/blasters-and-blades as well for as little as 99 cents a month. It's a reoccurring basis, much like a Patreon model. And finally, you can support the show on buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Again, buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Be sure to put in the comment section that it's for the podcast. I promise I will keep my co-hosts Nick Garber and Doc Seska duly intoxicated. They will drink until their liver surrenders.
Never surrender.
What the hell is a liver?
I know what a liver is.
After 1 month of the Ranger bout, I hear they just remove it.
Yeah, along with your wisdom teeth.
Yeah, they just remove it after the first week.
Gone.
The bad boys never kept theirs. One kidney. All right, well, at least you've got one.
It's not mine. I just said I have one of them.
That's a good point. But before we let you go, this is an important question. Might be the most important question. We should put it with the religion question. Peter, how do you feel about pineapples on pizza?
Oh, God. I hate this question.
It's not the worst thing ever, but it's not great either.
Okay, he's a diplomat. I can appreciate that. All right, Doc, bring us home.
JR is a 9-year-old boy who's obsessed with pizza. Thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For the actually here today, Nick Garber, JR, and JR. I am Seska. This was the Blasters and Blades podcast. We'll be back next week, same time, same place, torturing Nick, torturing JR, making fun of Nick.
Remote from St. Augustine, Florida.
So I hope you enjoy your time. And while we will indulge our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, all things that go boom, and of course, torturing JR, because why not?
Because it's fun.
It wouldn't be a podcast if you didn't. And on that note,